That I've never regretted any acquisition of any property that I've had. Right, maybe I could have structured that deal a little differently, but I've regretted most of the things that I've sold.
Austen Lobenherz is one of the most prominent realtors in northern Michigan.
He has represented some of the region's most high-profile sales, including 8425 Raspberry and 11756 West Point. In addition, he also manages a robust development portfolio and property management business.
When he's not selling real estate, he is traveling the globe, pursuing his hobbies in skiing and action sports.
I just started buying Zillow leads when I was home for the summer.
Really?
And closing deals. They weren't the big ones that you alluded to in the beginning.
Sure.
But yeah, I was doing some little deals, some little pieces of land.
How'd you end up selling these monster luxury homes, a handful of years later?
Believe it or not, even one of those came from a realtor.com lead. I started buying leads right off the get-go. We probably do 70-80% of our business between June and end of October up there. Best piece of advice that was ever given to me starting off was just to be brutally honest with your clients, even when they don't want to hear it. People come to vacation and they end up buying property.
That's wild.
I call them the Margarita buyers. They have one or two margaritas and then they stop into my office.
Can you identify one belief that you think has changed your life?
I think
Hey guys, I'm James Danley. Welcome back to the Bulldogs Podcast. Today I've got a very special guest, a good friend of mine, Austen Lobenherz. He and I met years ago during the COVID lockdowns in Tulum, Mexico, and we had a good time together. It just so happened to be that he's one of the top real estate agents in the state of Michigan, in northern Michigan, very luxury market in the northwest side of the state that not a lot of people know about. But he was the top agent under 30 years old for 2 different years, 2019 and 2021. He sold a lot of the highest priced sales in those communities between $6 and $10 million homes, which for Michigan is big numbers. He's lived an adventurous, crazy life. He's a real estate entrepreneur involved in a lot of developments up there, and it's going to be a fun conversation today. Austin, it's great to have you, brother.
Yeah, good to see you, man.
Appreciate you coming down.
Thanks for having me.
So yeah, you and I met, was it 2020 or 2021? I think it was during the lockdowns in 2020 we were down in Tulum.
I want to say it was New Year's, I remember. It was New Year's Eve 21. So we were going.
Okay, yeah.
So we spent 2020 and 21 together.
Yeah, that was we had a good time down there too.
Yeah,
everyone
was really fun.
Everyone was down in Mexico during that time because there's not other places you can go to.
And we just happened to have a table right next to each other.
We did. We ended up hanging out. We had fun for a week or so.
Yeah, you guys came down to my place in Tulum.
Yeah,
you guys just stayed with me.
Had a great time.
That's good. Sometimes it works out like that.
It's true. Yeah. So to start this conversation off, man, so you grew up in northern Michigan. For those that aren't familiar, northern Michigan used to be very sleepy, people from the state would visit up there. Now it's a globally renowned destination. You have a lot of wealthy individuals around the country that are buying large estates and large homes. They can take their yachts all the way from the ocean all the way to northern part of Michigan. You've been involved and you've watched that over the last I don't know how many years take place as far as the development, the growth of the community. You've been in the real estate space, so talk to me a little bit, man, about your background, what it was like growing up there, and then how that changed, and then let's talk about your career journey, how you ended up in the real estate space.
Sure. Yeah. First off, I'd say the high end market's always been in northern Michigan.
So it has been there for a long time.
It's just getting its recognition now. I think that the landscape has totally changed with just how things are marketed online. And it's just really kind of getting its moment in the limelight. But the big money's always been up there.
And was that big Michigan money historically, a lot of the automotive type guys that have always had homes up there?
Yeah, exactly. I would say, if you looked even 5 years ago, probably 80% of your second home buyers were coming from Southeast Michigan, Chicago, Northern Ohio. Whereas now you probably have more than half of them coming from Texas, New York.
Interesting. So, California as well.
Yep, exactly. Southern California.
So now it's more of a globally or nationwide recognized luxury destination versus just for people in the state that are high profile.
It is, especially Traverse City.
When did that change start happening?
It has started happening in COVID. I mean, I remember sitting in lockdown. I was getting calls from guys in Manhattan and in Houston, and they're going, can I really buy this house on Lake Michigan 200 feet on the lake for $700,000? Yeah, when do you want to come see it? And they're like, I don't need to, dude. Lock it down. I'm wiring the money. So you had people just kind of fleeing there during the pandemic from those states. And then I think there was a lot of media that got circulated online. I think the Pure Michigan campaign had a lot to do with it. I mean, I've been in like North Carolina and Florida and seen those ads on TV. So I think that did a really good job with getting the out-of-state buyers there.
Interesting. Yeah. So what was it like growing up there, man, when you were a kid?
I've been up there all my life, really. So
was it sleepier when you were a kid? Like a little less?
From what I remember, yeah. We always wanted to get out of there, when I was a kid. We were like, ride your bikes around all night. Your parents weren't worried about you. It was not big city at all. It's still like that to a degree, besides maybe Traverse City. But, my dad was a realtor there growing up. So I remember riding around with him. And there was kind of a phase maybe between like 2004, 2007, where there was a little boom there that really got shut down when 2008, 9 collapse kind of came. Since then, it got really sleepy, and then just COVID.
Wow, so it's blown up the last 5 years then.
Yeah, really the last 5-6 years.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So when you were younger, man, what were you originally planning on doing career-wise? Like, how did you end up taking this entrepreneurial path where you not only sell real estate, you guys develop real estate, you guys sold a brokerage and a title company back in 2020. Like, talk to me about your life's journey, like how you ended up on this path and what that kind of looked like. Yeah,
I was studying political science when I first went to college. I was going to be a politician or a senator or a professor or something like that.
I can't see that, man.
No, I can't anymore. Yeah, it was a different time. But I always had my own small business and things. I used to have like a small boat washing business growing up. So the entrepreneurial mindset was always there. I switched colleges. I went from DePaul out to University of Colorado because they have a degree program that is entrepreneurship. Is the degree. It's a business degree out there. And I went to that school for that reason. And
which school is that?
University of Colorado, Denver.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah, it's called the Jake Jabs Center for Entrepreneurship.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that was a degree. They pretty much just let you pick whatever business classes you want.
That's amazing.
That one. So that put me on that path, and I got licensed while I was there in school. I was coming back in the
What
summer.
was the catalyst that made you decide to change schools, change majors, and then go down that path? Do you remember?
Yeah, I was just living in Chicago, and it just wasn't my thing. In my first college, I like skiing, I like rock climbing, I like action sports. 19-year-old guy in Chicago, you really don't have much ability to do any of that kind of stuff. I can't travel and
you're under the legal drinking age then too.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just riding around on the train to classes, and it was just not my thing. So, yeah, just took a little break and then ended up out in Colorado.
How'd that work out? Was that
was the right move for me? Yeah. It's a school where it's not your traditional football games and tailgates kind of a school. It's downtown. My classes are in the 30th floor of a high-rise building, but I just, got to put my suit on and kind of felt like I was starting my career early. I liked that.
Everyone always talks about how, like, entrepreneurship's not really taught all that well, how you kind of have to, like, learn it or experience it or... Like, do you think that degree was beneficial? Like, what were your takeaways from it that helped you set up success in life, or was most of the entrepreneurial path kind of figured out and learned and on the go?
Yeah, sure. I mean, when you have when I say it was an entrepreneurship specific degree, I mean, it was like managerial classes mostly. It was like your regular business administration, aside from a couple key courses.
Gotcha.
So there were some great professors there that had some like entrepreneurial background that could give you a lot of insight. But I don't think there was really any specific classes that could prepare you for that kind of thing. In fact, I mean, my business classes, I thought they were all pretty medial for someone who was already kind of in the business and whatnot. But I think it teaches you your social skills and just working with people in that sort of environment. That's what you really get out of it.
So you're out west, man. You're in Denver. You have access to all the fun activities. You're probably like snowboarding and like mountain bike. I mean, what was the stuff you're doing out there activity-wise?
Skiing's my thing. Backcountry skiing. Yeah. Outside the resort. That's what I'm trying to do all the time. Still going out there. I just got back from there too.
That's awesome.
We got to get you out there.
I would love to, man. It'd be a lot of fun. Yeah. So lifestyle was fun out there. So what brought you back to Michigan then after school? Like, what did that look like when you finished college?
Just the real estate career. My dad owned a brokerage in northern Michigan with about 12 offices. I'd been working there in the summertime. So I just I I liked selling real estate. I was good at it. I had some job offers out there. I liked the offer in Michigan better, so it brought me back.
Is that something, man, that you have like a lot of memories of your dad in the space that kind of like helped inspire you in that real estate sales world, or like what was it that helped you make that decision?
Yeah, I don't know that I have specific memories that inspired me, but I was always interested in architecture in the homes. You'd take me on, tours of these beautiful lakefront homes, and I always loved that. I always loved seeing it. And then, the office there that I ended up working in, I kind of was a little kid crawling around on the floor in there and knew everyone from that. So it just kind of felt like home for me.
That's awesome.
So it was really, really easy to integrate into that space.
That's great, man. So you moved back after college. You got right into real estate sales right out of the gate.
Yeah. Before I graduated, really, I'd already had probably a dozen sales under my belt.
Oh, really? You
just
did?
Coming back in the summertime. Yeah.
Wow. So you were selling real estate in the summer while you were in college.
Yeah.
Like, did you just leverage your network? Like, how did that look? How did you get started doing it?
I just started buying Zillow leads when I was home for the summer.
Really?
And closing deals. They weren't the big ones that you alluded to in the beginning.
Sure.
But yeah, I was doing some little deals, some little pieces of land here and there.
That's awesome.
Home 3-4 months at a time. If you could sell one or two, it was a good summer job.
Great summer job. Yeah. Probably not too demanding on your time either.
No, and I was working as a leasing agent when I was back in Denver and in Chicago before. I started doing that when I was 18. So I was pretty familiar with this idea of working with a buyer and going through the transaction model and negotiating. So
you had that foundation built. You're ready to go.
Yeah.
So then when you moved home in permanently full time, like how did you start building your business? What was your plan of execution? How'd you end up selling these monster like luxury homes, a handful of years later?
Believe it or not, even one of those came from like a realtor.com lead. I started buying leads right off the get-go and just really hitting them hard, pounding them.
Wow.
Once I had that for a couple of years, I established, a buyer base, and I just focused on those clients. And I think we have a little higher turn up there than you have down here. They say like there's like a 7-year turn in real estate. I think it's probably more like 3.5 there.
Interesting.
So really now just focusing on these buyers that I had up front. When we went through this crazy boom, all of their homes doubled, tripled in value, and I had all these sellers, and then that kind of gave me a reputation there as being a list agent.
So what do you think why do the homes turn over faster? Why is it a 3.5 year turnover up there? Who are these buyers? They're actually living up there, or are they second homes? Like what's that demographic look like?
I mean, I think it had a lot to do with the price elevation that you saw from like 2020 until now.
Interesting.
You had a lot of people buying in between 2016 and 2020, and by 21, even 22, all those homes had like doubled in value up there. So the churn probably was partly because of that. And then you had, interest rates coming in, so people wanted to buy something new, and they were locked into their, 2018, 2019 interest rate, and all of a sudden at the end of 2020, they could get 2.9%. So I think that was all kind of a catalyst for that. I'm not sure if that continues long term. You kind of have two types of people up there. You have those who are buying there and they're short-term rentals, vacation homes, and when something better comes along, they're selling to up their game. And then you also have people that are buying, legacy properties for their family. Those ones are not turning as quickly. Those people
they just buy them.
They stay for 40 years. Yeah.
Waterfront, larger developments.
Yeah, waterfront homes mostly, large stuff like that. People are holding on to those.
Are you seeing a lot of migration too? I feel like a lot of people down here will retire or get close to retirement, and then they move up north. They move to Charlevoix or Traverse City.
Yeah, I think you get a lot more of that in Traverse City. Like I like to call Traverse City North Grand Rapids. It's like a suburb up there. Charlevoix is still more a summer destination. We do get people moving there, but it's a lot of snowbirds. People spend their winter down in Florida. If you look at the connection between like Charlevoix and Naples, for example, it's huge. People go down there and then they come to Charlevoix and they hang out in their same communities in Charlevoix. They buy by each other down there and up here. So
interesting. So the Charlevoix and Naples have a connect. How many of those guys actually drive boats from Naples up to Charlevoix?
That I couldn't tell you, but some of them do. Yeah, you can
wild.
absolutely do it, and it's probably a big one of the reasons that it is so. Both destinations are so popular. We get boats in the Charlevoix harbor that are from China, Australia, England. You can get there from anywhere in the world.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
that's very cool. So you really feel like this ultra luxury market It's only developed in the last like 5. I mean, obviously it was there, but it's only blown up to where you have a lot of outside wealth outside of the state that's been buying these homes in the last 5 years.
Yeah, really I think in Charlevoix, at least my main chunk of business is still Birmingham, Bloomfield Hills vacation homes. I mean, it's Oakland and wealthy parts of Wayne County. But if you look at areas like Traverse City, the kind of development going on there, that's all funded now by New York PE money. Those are people coming in from primarily Texas and New York.
Interesting. What's driving that, do you think?
You have the Traverse City Airport that opened up flights to Dallas, which is a really big deal. They're flying to Jersey, New York, Denver now. So that allows people quick access. And then I think it's still relatively an affordable market for people that are coming from New York, Texas, California. If I'm a wealthy guy in my 40s in Southern California, a house on Lake Tahoe, it's still $20 million. There's still
Sure.
It's not totally achievable, but you can get something on the bay in Traverse City for 1.5. So it's just kind of the right price for the kind of the millennial millionaire buyer.
That's awesome. So how long do they usually stay and use those homes then?
I haven't been around long enough to find out how long they're going to stay.
But no, I mean like in the year, yeah. So like, are they there just for a few months? They use the house maybe like a few weeks or like a month out of the summer, and then do they rent them the rest of the
People are back and forth usually. You see them coming in for a week, coming out. Some people will come stay the whole summer. That's usually older folks, maybe retired or working less. Your kind of younger millennial guy, they're in and out, and they're Airbnb-ing it when they're not there. Yeah, they're renting it out, or their friends are staying there.
What about the buyers of the large, like the higher price stuff, like the $6 million plus dollar homes? Is that buyers different? They're probably not Airbnb in those homes.
You're starting to see some of that.
Some of them do it.
Not those couple that I sold there, not that price range, but kind of in the $3 to $5 million price range. There's now a market for those kind of luxury rentals. But your stuff that's selling $5-6 million plus, all the way up to 10-12 million, those are large, wealthy families that are using them like compounds. They'll all come in from all over the country. A lot of people from down here, right where we are in Birmingham.
So they bring their entire family up for the summer. Then.
Yeah, their family's coming in and out. Whether it's them staying there, there's a niece and nephew or son, someone staying there. It just becomes kind of a retreat. Yeah,
it's funny. Like I have a handful of clients down here that wealthier, successful physicians, business owners, like their wives and kids literally, boom, a whole summer they're in Charlotte.
Sure, they're down here working too.
Yeah, and the husband's back and forth.
Yeah, exactly.
Still working down here, and then the kids and the wife are living the dream in Charlotte.
They're up there wakeboarding.
Yeah,
exactly.
In the sand.
Must be nice.
It's not a bad way to go.
Sure.
So do you still feel connected, man? Like to like Charlevoix is like your home in that community? Has it changed a lot? Like,
yeah, no, I feel. Well, I personally feel a huge connection to Charlevoix, but I don't feel like it's lost its charm, so to speak, by this rush of people coming in. I mean, I've definitely seen some communities change, and I think some communities manage it better than others. I think, your communities like Charlevoix and Harbor Springs have kept kind of their class about them. Then you have places like Bay Harbor, which is really blown up. That's not saying anything bad about it. It's an awesome place, but they just went in a total different direction with what Petoskey used to be. So you have different municipalities that are kind of regulating it more than others, the new development that is.
How did Bay Harbor go in a different direction? Explain the differences.
Well, I mean, everything there is essentially built in 1996 or newer, right? Whereas something that large, I think in somewhere like Charlevoix or Harbor Springs, you just would never get approved for that kind of a development to take off. And no one really knew that was going to blow up in the way that it did.
So as far as like staying there and having that as your home base, you plan on staying in that market long term? Like, is that like your long term business focus? I mean, I know you're working on some development projects up there as well. Like, you've shifted from real estate sales into development. Like, talk to me. Did you guys dabble in development when you were younger? Did you start representing builders? Like, how did you get into the development end of the business?
It was through family connections. And my dad, when he was about my age, was doing some development stuff. That was when things were taking off there during that time. And we owned a lot of large vacant land. It was primarily the catalyst there. So
that's awesome.
We bought a lot of the old PUDs that didn't happen after the 2008, 2009 collapse. There were some that were still approved and still had all their entitlements. So we bought a lot of those pieces of property, and then as the building prices have come down in the last 3 years, it's just finally made sense to do something with them.
So you guys, your dad had the foresight that after 2008, there was a lot of development. That market crashed. Mm-hmm. That stuff all got fire sold, and you guys actually bought a lot of it, and you were able to keep those approvals active. Because I know down here, like a lot of the building approvals expire in a year if you don't break ground, but it sounds like up north the municipalities might be a little more flexible. So you're able to extend those, keep the approvals, and then eventually develop them like, I don't know, years later.
Yeah, the last one, or the one we're working on right now, which is right next to the Charlotte Country Club, it was a PUD that was approved 16 years ago when we started.
Wow.
And it was still set and ready to go. And
that's
it just
wild.
Finally made sense from a construction standpoint.
That's awesome. So what kind of development is that? Like, who are you building those for?
That is, it's a 16-unit single-family home site condo development in like the 500 to 700 range. These are 15 to 1,700 square foot, 3-bed, 2-bath ranch homes. Some of them have lofts there, but they're right on the golf course there. That's been primarily retirees moving in that
Makes
price
sense.
range.
So they're retiring from down here or somewhere else, and they're buying a permanent home there that's low cost on the golf course, and they're staying there all year round, or for the summer they go to Florida in the winter.
Probably about a 50-50.
50-50.
Yeah, and a couple people that are buying them just to rent too. I mean, short-term rentals.
Interesting. That's awesome. That's great, man. So which side of the business do you enjoy more? Do you enjoy the sales and brokerage and negotiation, and the development? What are the differences?
Well, we do all the sales and brokering for our developments, so they're one in itself. I would like to be on the creative side as much as possible with the developments.
Sure.
I mean, that's the most fun, but I love working with buyers, especially because it is my hometown, and I just get to show them things like not only the home, but they didn't know there's this beach access over here, this sand dune down the road from their house, and I'm showing them like the spots I hung out at as a little kid. Like,
all the cool local
where I rode
spots.
my bike to, and stuff. So I really like sharing that. Exactly, the rope swing. There is a spot for that. Yeah, I know right where it is too.
That's awesome, man. So long term, like, you think you'll stay based out of that area forever? Do you have plans to go anywhere else, or are you going to stay anchored there for a while?
It's nice to work in that market and how seasonal it is, because it gives me the ability to travel in the off season quite a bit. I can be down here with you guys right now in the middle of a work week.
Sure.
I do have people in place up there to handle a lot of day-to-day stuff. I'm always going to be boots on the ground in the summer, I think, but I am looking for different areas to spread my wings during the wintertime. We probably do 70-80% of our business between June and end of October up there. So
wow.
It gets really quiet in the wintertime, and you kind of got to...
Gives you flex. That's why you're in Mexico in December.
Exactly. Hey, you were too, though.
It's true, yeah. I think everybody was down there at the end of that year. It's like there's not a lot of other places to go. It was fun. So cool, man. So what have been the big lessons and takeaways in your career journey? Like if you're giving counsel or advice to maybe the next generation guys that want to get into the real estate sales space, like what's been your approach to the business that might be different from your competitors up north? What advice or counsel would you give the younger guys that might be interested in the space, either from the sales or development or both?
Yeah, the best piece of advice that was ever given to me starting off was just to be brutally honest with your clients, even when they don't want to hear it, and even when it's going to lose your sale. I see too many people jump into it, and they try to be salesmen. And some of them are really good at it, but that only lasts for maybe like a couple years before you are just a salesman. You really want to be more of a consultant to your people. I mean, I see you do that with your clients as well. So my biggest piece of advice would just be to be genuinely yourself and give people, always be honest in your doings there, and it's going to reflect long term. You're looking for repeat business. It's hard to see 6-7 years down the road, but that's when the money really starts coming in this business, and you got to stick that through.
Yeah, I think it's there. That 7-year mark is key.
It is.
Even for like in my bit, I remember you worked your tail off for 6-7 years, and then that 7th or 8th year, the business starts flowing back to you, and it starts compounding.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I'm lucky. I got in the business in 2015, so people in my office joke. They're like, "Of course, you have better years every year."
The market's
we
going
all
up.
have, exception of maybe this year, but So I'm lucky. I haven't seen that big downturn, but hopefully it's not coming.
So talk to me. Was there any like strategy behind your career like change, like from selling like the regular homes and like your standard client base to selling the $7 to $10 million homes? Was there any sort of transition that took place? Did that evolve naturally? Like how did that career journey take place?
It just evolved naturally. I think it's just kind of it's a numbers game in that there's only a few of these sellers up there, right? And there's only maybe 20 of us agents that are doing 90% of the business up there, and maybe another 10 that are doing these high value homes. So it was just happened to be when those people that were clients of mine, came to sell.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think testimony too, like to time in the market and then picking a market niche. Like if you own a small like market and it inside and out, your business will compound and grows. I think it's a better approach to the real estate sales business than just chasing stuff all over the place, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you get hyper focused like that, and in a small market like mine, I don't just know the market, but I know all the players, and I know how this broker negotiates. I know what his first move is, and I know who his buyer is on this personally. So we all kind of know each other there, and that helps.
Do you remember like your first big break or like first big deal where you felt like you finally made it, like where that was at in your career?
I had a couple right about 21, right about the time we met each other. I had some big sales coming in. We sold a big hotel down in Traverse City.
You sold an entire hotel?
Yeah, I've got
That's
a couple
awesome.
hotels. We can talk about that more. But we sold a hotel down there, and that was a catalyst for us. We started getting some hotel listings.
Wow.
And then we had just in 21 probably, I don't know off the top of my head, but I want to say 6 or 7 Lake Charlevoix listings and sales that came in a couple months.
That's
awesome. That's when it felt like I'm not going to leave. No way. it was right about the time I was thinking about it too, because we had COVID kicking off, and
yeah,
I was hanging out with our buddy Hogan down in Texas. I was considering going down there, and I said, one more summer up north. We're just gonna try it for one more summer, and then things just really popped off.
That was everything snowballed.
I couldn't leave after that.
That makes sense. So with the hotel, was that like a small boutique hotel? Was that like a small like owner that then sold to bigger corporate owner? Like talk to me about that. It's an interesting transaction.
That first one was actually my family owned a small percentage of it.
Oh wow!
And it was it's right on the beach down in Traverse City.
Is this like a small like boutique hotel?
48 unit hotel,
Nice.
but not a flag. So I guess you could call it boutique there. And we've listed and sold a couple boutique hotels since there. And I'm really trying to break into that market more.
That's
I think
awesome.
it's such a oversaturated market when you come down here to this area.
Sure.
And we're starting to get those buyers. I mean, they're looking in the UP, in parts of Canada and Ontario too, over in eastern Wisconsin, where these markets really haven't been tapped.
So who's the buyer that's buying boutique hotel?
There's two types, and anything that's like in your motel, kind of in that like $2-3 million price range, it's probably someone that's retiring and they want to live up there and they want to put their money into an asset that's going to work for them, and they're going to run it themselves.
Interesting.
And then you have really just a couple families that own probably 70% of the hotels in northern Michigan. So these families, they just buy whatever they can get at any opportunity.
And they've got larger scale systems and teams that do an effective job of managing those.
Yeah, they're probably 50 plus hotels in the state of Michigan, and
Wow.
they're just starting to pick up these ones up north.
That's wild.
But that market's really changing. You have 2 Marriotts being built in the city of Petoskey right now. So the hotel industry, I think, with Airbnbs declining a little bit and it coming back, and the population growth that we've had up there, it's just kind of having its moment where it finally makes sense to have like these flag hotels.
Interesting.
So you're starting to see a lot of the boutiques get converted into more.
So talk to me a little more about that. You mentioned that the Airbnb business is declining. Is that because there's less available options? Because it seems like there's a shortage.
There's more available options.
Oh, there is.
I guess it depends.
I guess it depends on where it's at.
And if you're looking, are you saying more options for a renter or for a buyer investor?
No, for a renter, it's a rent. It seems like it's always tough to get stuff in the summer up there anywhere, at least like
in
Traverse City.
July and August for sure. You have a lot of regulation that came down in the last 5 years on Airbnbs.
Okay.
When I bought my first one in 2017, and that was my best year ever. And I think when I bought that, there was like 35 other listings in Charlevoix, Airbnb listings. Now there's 300 plus.
Wow.
Yeah. So the city's tried to regulate it, and they've put caps and licenses, and all those things I think are good to a certain extent. But the market's become more saturated. You can still make money, but there was a time between like 27 and 2019 where you could buy almost anything and turn it into a 20 cap. Wow. Just like that. I mean, a single family home.
So now with that much competition, is there enough market demand? Like, what do the numbers actually look like on a lot of those? What's the percentage that they actually stay occupied?
Occupancy percentages are weird. You're looking at like 60 to 70%, and it really just depends on how you run it and the type of property. I mean, there's some that do good in the winter. There's some that completely close down and shut their doors in the winter. Interesting. And just renting in the summer. So, you have Boyne Mountain up there, Boyne Highlands. You do have like the ski and winter business, but it's primarily an all summer business. I mean, that's when you're earning 70% of your money, just like the brokerage business up there.
So talk to me about your like Northern Michigan vacation rental property or business that you started in like 22 or whatever. So obviously I assume that ties in with this. Is that like a management business, or you own all of your own properties? Like, talk to me about that.
It's a management business. I own some of the properties, and it really just started to serve a need with my clients that were like wanting to buy these investment properties, and they're saying, "Hey, Austin, you have a couple, and who do you use to run it?" And I'm saying, "Well, I run them myself. I've got some people that help me clean and stuff, and people just wanted me to run theirs too." So that just developed naturally.
That's awesome. Yeah. I feel like logistically that can be a challenging business if you don't have the right connections in a market. And I know up north it's tough to get contractors. It's tough to get people to do anything because there's not a lot of people that live there all year round that do those services. Yep. So what have been the challenges in that business for you? Like, have you done well with it? Where is it kind of at?
We've done well with it a lot. And honestly, you hit the nail on the head right there. Any kind of service hospitality industry up there is really tough finding the help. I could grow exponentially right now, but I don't have the staff, and they're not there. The people to hire aren't there to service that. We could probably double, triple in size within a year if we want. I mean, I could start making phone calls, but I wouldn't be able to service and clean all these. And really, the challenge is how much of my time can I put into that versus my business, my brokerage business.
Sure.
So right now, I'm very kind of selective about the homes that we're taking on and doing that with, but I think you're going to see brokerages all forming their own kind of vacation and rental management. Kind of down here, you have property management. You might be doing some multifamily management from the brokerage side. I think all the brokerages up there are going to have their own short-term rental, vacation, booking, property management within the next 5-6 years.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So most for the properties you guys manage, the occupancy is in that same range, like 60 to 70% a year.
Yeah, usually in Charlevoix, it is that.
Are all of them in Charlevoix, or you have like some in the surrounding areas?
No, we're everywhere from Traverse City up to Harbor Springs.
Which of those communities do you find is the best for Airbnb profitability?
Charlevoix or Boyne City, because you're still close to the skiing in the wintertime, and you get the highest rates in the summer. You go down to Traverse City and you start competing with hotels. But when you're in Charlevoix or Harbor Springs, I mean, there's only, I think, 4 hotels in Charlevoix.
Interesting.
Yeah. So.
That's awesome. So talk to me about, man, like Northern Michigan, like what that region means to you, like the soul of the community, preservation of it. Like, do you want to see more development changes in Charlevoix? Do you want it to stay similar to what it is? Like, obviously you guys are doing development there. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about all of that in Northern Michigan changing in general?
That's probably the hottest topic in Northern Michigan in the last 5 years. You got 2 groups of people. You have the local people that have been there forever that don't want to see it change. They don't want it to get overcrowded. They don't want Charlevoix to turn into like a Traverse City, for example. And then you have people that see the opportunity and really want to capitalize on it. And I'm probably somewhere in the middle. Because I agree, I think the appeal of Northern Michigan is the charm and how low-key it is. But I also know, and I've just seen in other communities, if you don't have some development, then you're dying. And that is the change that's happened in northern Michigan, where we no longer have manufacturing. It's all service industry based. Probably contracting is probably the number one business, and home improvement is probably the number one business up there. And that development directly feeds the community. So you need to have some pacing on it, but there has to be new development going on there. And I just want to be part of it so I can see it done in a way that's going to be good for the community.
Which of the northern communities are most development friendly and which are least development friendly?
Traverse City is probably most development friendly, and Harbor Springs and Charlevoix being the least.
Interesting.
Petoskey's probably the next market you see that's going to have some big development. We're starting to see like 160 unit apartment sites being approved, hotels being built. Whereas if you came to Charlevoix and you said we're going to build 78 unit Marriott, it would just never happen.
They'd say no.
Yeah, they would say no.
Well, Charlevoix has that small town feel,
Exactly.
and they kind of want to maintain that too. Keeps it somewhat different.
So I think eventually you'll probably get another airport north of Traverse City.
Really?
And that'll, maybe in Boyne, I think there's land to do it. And once that happens, it's kind of all bets off for that area. We have small private airports, but they're limited in the size of things that you can land there. And, we have buyers that are like, oh, I love Harbor Springs, but I can't land my plane here. And they buy in Traverse City for that reason.
Interesting.
So I think if you get some growth in those airports, it'd really be a game changer for those communities.
That's awesome. In your opinion, for the wealthy buyer that's looking to buy a property in northern Michigan, maybe they have a boat or a plane, which of the communities do you think has the best upside financially? Like, what's the best location to buy from an investment perspective?
I would say those upscale wealthy buyers aren't buying for investment. Ththey're
just
people are
buying.
buying more long term. So I don't know
So
how
they're
much.
so then they're buying based on lifestyle. So
They're
like
definitely buying on lifestyle.
for their lifestyle design. Which of the communities?
I
best?
think they're all pretty undervalued still. I look at real estate in places I've been, like Aspen or Hilton Head, South Carolina, and I look at our property values, and I think we're still really undervalued compared to a lot of the other luxury markets in the United States.
And that's just assessing what they have access to do from a lifestyle perspective in northern Michigan compared to those other markets.
Compared to the home prices, primarily in Traverse City, where you don't see as much of the $6 million plus sales going on. I think there's going to be a lot of upward movement in that market still. Especially in the high end. The high end market right now is the only market that we've seen over the last 24 months that's continued to grow, and home prices continued growing. Everything else has been pretty stagnant. So, your lakefront properties, there's a limited number of them, and spaces are filling up. There's new construction every year. So, we're getting to a point where some of those famous lakefronts like Lake Charlevoix, Lake Walloon, they're not going to have many vacant lots left on them soon. So I think anything that's lakefront on the inland lakes, especially Lake Charlevoix, where you have access to the big water there, I think you're only going to see price improvement.
What if someone wants to buy a property and they want to use it in the summer and the winter? What's the best location up there to buy?
Probably
to be
Boyne
able to
City
use?
if you're a skier.
Boyne
you
City.
have Boyne Mountain, which is the largest ski resort in Michigan, and they have a lot of great amenities over there, depending on what you're into. So Boyne, if you're looking for that active lifestyle, because you have mountain biking in the fall, you have skiing in the winter, and Lake Charlevoix in the summer. If you enjoy your nightlife a little more, if you enjoy dining, you're looking at Traverse City. They've turned into a culinary hub of Michigan. You can go see the ballet and go out to dinner on a Thursday night in the winter in Traverse, which is
It's
something
wild. There was an article in the
something
Wall
you
Street, I
couldn't
think it
do.
was 2 years ago, said that Traverse City has the highest concentration of millennial millionaires in the country.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about when we talked about those California people that are buying there instead of Lake Tahoe.
It's wild.
It's just the right price point for them.
Is part of that the vineyards too, and like the wine business that's in Traverse City? Because
Yeah, that's definitely helped. Traditionally Traverse is the cherry capital, right? And you had these cherry orchards, and at some point there was always wineries up there, but at least the story I heard is there was some tariff things going on that changed the price of cherries dramatically and the amount that could be exported, and everyone started switching to wine, where you now have over 400 registered wineries in Grand Traverse County.
wow,
And I have a place out on Old Mission, or I'm sorry, I had a place. I just sold it this fall. And that is driving the California, New York buyer there, is those vineyards, those wineries. A lot of them are part of these clubs and travel clubs that travel just for wine. And that's where they're coming from.
And are they coming in just to visit and vacation, or are they actually buying property here and like having some sort of base?
People come to vacation and they end up buying property. Yeah,
That's wild.
I call them the margarita buyers. They have one or two margaritas, and then they stop into my office. They see a picture.
And they're like, let's buy it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, maybe we'll meet in the morning, but we can look at it right now for sure. No, but I mean, that is. We laugh about it, but it's true. I've seen it with so many of my clients. I've had people that are just walk-ins. Couple I'm thinking of in particular, I think they were from Missouri, and they were just in Charlotte for the weekend and never heard of it. And they ended up buying a house before they left. And they live there. They live there full time now. They love it. So
that is wild.
The word is out. And I mean, once you come there, especially if you come during the summertime, it's pretty likely we're going to get you to stay.
That's crazy. So that's kind of crazy to me. Like, what other market is there, even in the U.S., where people come to vacation for a weekend and then end up falling in love and buying property there?
Yeah, you're talking about maybe Key West, Aspen, Hilton Head, these big luxury markets.
That's wild. I mean, that elevates like Charlevoix and Traverse City and that northern Michigan to a pretty high level. That's crazy comparatively.
Yeah. Things are changing up there, and I think it's going to continue. So
that's wild.
It's just fun to be part of it. We got to get you up there soon, though.
So from your perspective, man, from a competitive advantage, like if you're looking at the market, what is it that makes that market so special that these people are coming there, they're falling in love, they're buying a house on a weekend?
It's the waterfront. I mean, especially in the summertime, it's the waterfront. It's the small community feel that people have been craving since kind of I'd say, flight from the cities that started during COVID. And now we have all the amenities that you would want in a bigger city or a suburb. We have the big box stores all within, at least 45 minutes. We've got great restaurants, school systems that are good. So really it's kind of Northern Michigan's coming into its own, and that we can offer everything that the cities have traditionally offered, and then we have the outdoors.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's a good lifestyle. So ideal lifestyle for you is you're there for a handful of months when 80% of the business is being done, which you said between which month and which month?
Probably the beginning of June and end of October. Yeah, maybe even late June.
June to October, and then the rest of the year you're kind of traveling, doing other stuff. I mean, I know you're always out in Aspen skiing.
Yep.
Talk to me about your travels and adventures and stuff you've done.
Yeah, not as much anymore. I'm pretty busy. Even when I've been in Colorado, I've got to fly back there like twice a month.
Sure.
But I try to take off for at least a couple months every winter. I go skiing in Japan every winter.
Oh,
That's
really?
been my big thing. Yeah, that should be your guys' next boys' trip too, for sure. It's a lot of fun. How'd you end up skiing in Japan for the first time? And then what made you decide to do that every winter? It's known on the backcountry skier circuit. It's known as the Mecca, like the place, like maybe Niseko, which is Japan, and then Chamonix in France are like the two spots that you got to go to. And when I went and visited Japan, it wasn't just the skiing, it's the culture that they have there. You spend a few days in Tokyo or Kyoto and some of these cities, and you can take a train and be skiing in an hour.
That's awesome.
It's really amazing. I fell in love with it. If I could spend my whole winter there, I definitely would.
How was the jet lag traveling to Japan and back?
Going there is a little worse than coming back, but you know how traveling is. You get used to it. But working there is difficult. I mean, I'm up at 2-3 a.m. because it is like a 9-hour difference.
Yeah, it's crazy time zone difference. That's wild, man. So where's some other places you've gone? I mean, you were traveling a bunch just a handful of years ago. So Japan skiing in the winter is one of your top destinations.
Definitely spent a good amount of time in South America. Yeah, I was actually living down there when COVID hit, and I had to come back. I was down in Brazil and Uruguay. I would say those are some of my top destinations. The last 3 years, I've been back to Iceland every year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I had a client just got back from Iceland.
It's amazing. Yeah, that place is just blowing up. We were doing ice climbing there, but I'd like to go back to ski.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
So how long were you down in Brazil and South America?
About 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
How'd you like it? Talk to me about the communities there.
I spent most of my time in more rural communities.
Okay.
I think everyone goes down there and you're in Buenos Aires or you're in Rio. So I spent most of my time in Bariloche, Argentina, which is a small ski town. They have a lake that's like roughly the size of Tahoe. I mean, if you woke up there, you just think you were at Lake Tahoe.
Really?
It looks that much similar. Yeah, so I was there. It was our winter, so their summer there. And then I spent a lot of time in northern Uruguay, which is right on the border with Brazil. There's a town there called Punta del Diablo, which is a legendary kind of surf town. I had no idea about that when I arrived there. But, you probably have 5,000 people that are living, half of them without power or anything, or running water in their places. But it's not like an impoverished place. It's just all surf bums. So when I was there...
Did you surf a lot while you were there?
I did, yeah. And I didn't plan on being there long, but when I was there is when COVID was really ramping up. In South America, especially that part of South America, was one of the last places to really get hit. So everyone's calling me like, you got to come back. It's getting bad. Things are closing. And I'm just like looking around at this guy with, who hasn't had a cell phone in years, has no idea about COVID. I'm like, I'm going to stay right here. Yeah, this is fun.
Why would I come home? Makes no sense.
Exactly.
So you stayed there for the first 6 months of the COVID lockdowns?
I traveled from there to Rio, and it was still, everything was open there, but eventually had to come back because things did start closing there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was night and day. I was downtown in this area called Lalapa, which is just the busiest square, and you have thousands of vendors and people trying to sell you stuff. And every morning by like 6 a.m., that's going. And I got up one morning to take my jog, and every steel door on every storefront was like closed, and it was like quiet. And I checked. I was like, maybe I do need to get out of here. And I checked for flights going out, and they were like canceled. And there was like one to Miami, and I was like, I guess I'm
taking that one.
Yeah. And then flying into Miami, there was just hundreds of cruise ships waiting outside the port. That was a weird sight.
That is wild. That was a crazy era.
Yeah,
that sounds like an adventure. So you did make it all the way home, and then did you stay at home for all of COVID, or then you left?
Yeah, I did. I went up to northern Michigan.
You just stayed in northern Michigan that's during the shutdowns in 2020?
Yeah, for that first summer going on. And then I did try to explore again that winter. I mean, we were still pretty close here in Michigan. And my other kind of home base in Colorado, even more so. That's when my buddy and I got the idea to just go and spend the winter down in Mexico. And that's when we met you.
Yeah, it was a fun time.
We ran into you.
That was a great place to be.
Yeah, it was.
December and January.
There was nothing wrong going on there. I mean, everything was open.
It was.
You wouldn't even know.
It was just like, it was funny because there's so many high profile people down in Tulum too. Like, during the COVID shock, everyone was down there.
Ran into Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Oppenheimers were down there. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a place to go.
That's cool. Yeah. All right, so your top destinations are Japan for skiing and snowboarding, and then South America,
and Iceland. That's in my top three. Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Actually, I'd say if I had to live in any country besides the U.S., I would go to Iceland. Yeah, it's such a civilized, awesome place.
So talk to me about your life philosophy, man. I know that a lot of guys, they say live to work or work to live. Which of those extremes do you live in? Like, what's your life philosophy and how you kind of have designed your life?
Yeah, none of it was that intentional. I mean, my work and my life just blend into each other so much. I mean, I'm on the phone. Whether I'm traveling or not, I'm working just as much. I might be on the phone at 10 o'clock at night in Europe when it's daytime here, or vice versa. But I love what I do so much that I don't look at it that way. I mean, I look forward to going back to northern Michigan every summer. By the time I start traveling and getting to the end of it, like, I'm sick of it. Like, I want to be back in the office.
You're ready to go home.
And I think I really need that time to keep me motivated. When I travel, even if it's for a couple weeks, I come back and I have motivation to keep that lifestyle going. But I also really love what I do, so I miss it when I'm gone.
So talk to me about motivation then. How have you stayed motivated? Like, what is it that drives you? Is it just the travel and the experiences and the lifestyle, or is there something else behind staying motivated and driven to constantly?
No, I really try to be in the moment. I mean, it's day to day to me. I really don't have a long-term life plan for myself. I do have, a serious girlfriend now and more of a home life than I used to. So there's a lot of motivation to provide for them and, eventually have a family like that one day. But I really just want to be able to live the way I've been living for as long as I can. I want to be at my top physical shape and the top professional shape too for as long as I can to keep doing this.
So talk about that a little bit. So obviously you're a health conscious guy. You're in pretty good shape. Mm-hmm. And then you talked about your life design. So you know, you get the handful of months in Michigan for the summer, you're traveling during the winter months, the cold months. What's your eating and fitness and health routine look like when you're traveling all the time?
Well, when I'm traveling, it's usually these days for some kind of fitness experience. So we're either doing backcountry touring, skiing, we're going ice climbing. I might be looking at a triathlon, like I do these Xterra events.
Oh, very cool.
So when I'm doing that, you know, you could say that I'm trying to be very health conscious, but it's so hard when you're traveling because
It's tough.
I love eating everything I can, and I usually end up like screwing up my meal plan like the day before the big race kind of thing because, you know, you're in a food capital of the world and you got to try stuff. But, you know, I got to work out every day, and I got to that's fine. I've got to stay fit. I mean, it's what feeds me. It's what keeps me this active and just keeps me this alert going on. If I'm not doing that, then I can't do everything I want to do in a day. Like I can't.
If you're at home and you're not traveling, what's your eating regimen look like? Like, what do you?
I eat out pretty much every day.
You do, really?
Yeah,
You're kidding me.
I don't keep anything in my fridge.
How do you eat?
I don't get home. I don't get home till 9:30, 10.
All
10
the
o'clock
food in the
at
U.S.
night.
is so processed, man. How do you?
You can find it. I mean, when I'm down here, you know, I eat a lot of like Arabic food. There's a lot of, you know, high protein, high quality meals you can get. You just got to find the right spots, but it can be expensive. I'm not eating at Burger King if that's what you mean.
So you do hunt and you do find like health conscious food that is also convenient that fits the lifestyle.
Depending on where you're at. I mean, it's harder when I'm at home because I'm in these smaller communities like Charlevoix that, you know, you don't have as many options as maybe Birmingham.
Sure.
Or when you travel abroad, I mean, just by and large, most of the food you eat at a restaurant or grocery store is much healthier. So it's something that's harder to do in northern Michigan, but it's getting there. We're starting to have more cuisines available.
Very
to
cool.
that.
So talk to me about like the so you said that you don't have like a big necessarily career vision. You're more lifestyle focused. You got the lifestyle that you want. You want to keep that going. How do you envision the future of your career journey from sales and development? Like, is there any sort of targets or direction you want that to go in specifically? Yeah. And like weighted one way or the other, or you're just going to keep doing both and enjoying them kind of as they flow? You know,
I'll never stop selling, but I'll stop trying to sell my selling, if that makes sense. Like, I will always service my clients that I've been working with or people that I know in my life as buyers. I don't see myself going to actively stop being a realtor, but definitely getting into the development side and the creative side of that is where I really want to be. I want to be, you know, living in Charlevoix and it being like the place I love. I want to help create these kind of developments and the picture of what's going on there. And, you know, I kind of feel like I'm placing the people in the community that I like, you know, want and feel are good for it too. So definitely the development construction side of things is where it's going.
So there is a desire there to have involvement where you can shape the community and keep it the way that you want it to be with the type of people and the vision. And
yeah, and it's not that I'm exclusive or anything, but right. I like to think like I'm curating it sometimes. You know?
That's a great approach, man. Especially if you love the community, you want it to stay a certain way.
And we are, you know, you think about it when you have a buyer and you're telling them about a neighborhood, you're reading them and they're fit for that neighborhood or that area. And, you know if they're going to butt heads with that neighbor or something, like you might want to be in this HOA versus this one. You know, just the type of person everyone is.
I think it's funny, but I think some of the most intentional, like you said, curated communities are the most effective. I know that Birmingham's done a good job of like designing the community, the housing type they want, the front porch walkable, like lifestyle. Yeah, it was all very intentional. And the developers had a lot of say in that. Like the guys that cared about the community and making sure it was maintained and the quality of houses were built. Yeah, that goes a long way. I mean, if you do that in a community over a period of time, it makes a huge difference.
And that's the difference between someone coming from out of town or out of state and putting in a development that's strictly about the numbers. Mm-hmm. You know, whereas if they can make 5% more by skimping on this part of it, or, you know, not putting in some open space for everyone to share or something that looks nice, they're going to do it because it's all about the bottom line and they have investors they have to please. Whereas when you're working with people that are involved in the community and have to drive by it every day and interact with the people that are going to be there, You want everyone to be happy. You want to make this good product for them as much as, you want to make a profit.
Makes sense. Do you have any, as far as like the journey of your life, man, like everyone has struggles, adversity, challenges. Do you have any memories of like the darkest moments in your career development or your life personally? Anything you want to speak to on that front?
I had some health issues probably about a year before we met. And when I met you, I was just kind of coming out of those. So when I got back from Brazil and living down there, I did come down with COVID. And I was someone who was getting up and running 7 miles every morning and then like surfing for 4 hours a day. Wow. So I was at like my peak physical condition. I thought there was no way that, if I get this thing, it's going to affect me in any way. And it took me about 3 months to be able to walk to my mailbox again after getting that. And I eventually was really fortunate to get into Mayo Clinic and then to a clinic down in Mexico to help kind of nurse me back to health. But it took a solid 6 months before I could run a mile. And that was just I felt like that was going to be the end of my career, social life, the things I like to do. It felt in that moment like that was my life forever was kind of going to be in this bed rest.
Because you've been so active your whole life.
Because I had been so active. It was just mentally, it was terrible.
So you went from running 7 miles a day, surfing several hours a day, to not able to walk to the mailbox, and it took you 6 months recovery to run a mile.
Yeah.
Did you have asthma or no before?
No.
Oh.
No. It was still kind of like a mystery to doctors at that time because everything was so new.
Sure.
When I was trying to go to the emergency room because, I couldn't breathe and they're just telling me to stay home. So that was all real scary. But also, my perseverance through that has taught me so much about myself. I eventually just kind of, jumped on the horse and like started running, an eighth of a mile, quarter mile the next week, half mile the next week, and just really pacing it up. I took a deep dive into my own personal health with genetics and blood testing, and that's what eventually landed me at that clinic down in Mexico, and had to just kind of devote the majority of my time, just 100%, to getting my health back. And then once I had it, I realized how important it was. It's something that I don't want to lose again. And that's probably one of my biggest motivators to stay healthy and fit to this day.
That's awesome. That's a big jump, man, to go to Mayo Clinic and then go to Mexico for treatment.
Yeah.
A lot of people would view that as risky or maybe be scared or too nervous to make that leap. What gave you confidence to do it? How did it go? What kind of therapy did you have in Mexico?
I was doing plasmapheresis therapies, which is like a filtering of the blood. I was doing stem cell. And the catalyst for the jump there was really just timing. I mean, the healthcare system in the U.S., it takes months. And when you have something like this, what they call now long COVID, that was so new, I was jumping around to specialists. And when you get referred to a different specialist, it's like a couple more months each time. Well, you can see this specialist now in 6 weeks in this. And, they only test you for what your insurance will pay for, even if you're willing to pay out of pocket for stuff. And the clinic down in Mexico was like pay to play. I talked to these guys, and they deal with athletes and people, and they're like, we're going to give you one doctor where he's going to run all these tests that you're going to get from all these independent doctors up there. We're going to do it all in 2 days instead of a couple months. And then we're going to there's also some therapies that aren't approved, like stem cell. The kind of stem cell they're doing down there, like plasmapheresis. They use it's actually Russian medical equipment, Russian technology to do that sort of thing, where you need to go through kind of a rigorous testing process to get approved for that kind of thing in the U.S.
Yeah, how are they using stem cells to heal your lungs? How's that look like?
Well, it goes into your blood.
Interesting.
Yeah, you take it through an IV.
Wow.
So it's kind of a whole body thing, and I think what they were realizing is it just affects your whole body. It wasn't just the lungs, like that's where it gets in, but I had mind fog, I had blood vessel issues. I mean, it really affected me in a lot of ways.
And the stem cell treatment was effective?
I think so. I think I'll never know whether I was just slowly coming out of it or if there was the right timing of being there.
Sure.
Or if like this one, because it wasn't, one day, here's your medicine and go. I was down there for 3 months and going to this clinic 3-4 times a week doing these different therapies. So, I'll never really know for sure if it was just a timing thing or if those really worked. But I would say just kind of the the bedside manner and the care I got from those people down there was just unmatched anywhere.
So you'd recommend it? You'd do it again? Look into it again?
Yeah, I would. And
faster, more effective than the U.S. system.
For this particular ailment that I had, I'm no doctor, so I won't tell someone what they should or shouldn't do. But I think, you see that with COVID and long COVID and the resurgence of kind of regenerative health medicine. And look at all the clinics that are popping up even around here where you're doing things like IV therapies.
Sure.
And any kind of preventative medicine. Now it's one of the most popular topics. People are going down to Colombia, Argentina, Mexico. It's like a regular thing for the professional that has the means.
It's wild, man. A lot of advancements on that front for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do some rapid fire stuff. If you could go back to the version of yourself when you just got started out of college, like in the business space, and give yourself some advice, what would that be?
Buy all the real estate you can.
Buy all the real estate you can. And do it
that was 2015. I should have bought anything I could get my hands on. Yeah. No, but I sold a lot of things that I bought, even small little things like my first house when I was younger. And even through the ups and downs, I wish I held on to all of it, even if I could just find a way for it to pay for itself.
Sure.
That money comes and goes, but those assets, they give you happiness as well, and it's something. I think real estate will always be something I need to hold on to from now on. I've learned my lesson there.
Yeah, especially in the modern era with inflation, like you have to hold assets.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the difference now in America between the wealthy and the poor. Is like either there's those that own assets and those that don't.
Yeah, I sold a bunch of stuff in 2021, and I just thought it was really winning because that was the top of the market. Because it went down for like 6 months, and then by the time 23 rolls around, it's just like can't buy anything else and get these low interest rates. So
should have kept it all.
Possible to have that foresight though.
So talking about mindset, man, is there any beliefs that you've had to overcome? Any negative beliefs that hindered your growth, or maybe any beliefs that you've found valuable that have helped you succeed?
I think I've had to drop a lot of pride over the years. I think letting go of pride and ego is something that I needed to do in this business. I didn't want to originally come back and work for my family company because I didn't want to be the guy that, got his job because his family owns a company or something like that.
Sure.
And a mentor of mine just gave me a really great piece of advice. He's like, drop your pride, dude. Like, who cares? Why do you care about that? If you have an opportunity that's better than the other opportunity, you go for it. You got to remove the outside perspective from the equation. It's
true. You have any regrets in how you approach that at all?
Yeah, ton, but none that I can change now. So, I think the older I get, I do see the kind of old saying of, you got to work now so you can relax later. And I always had the complete opposite. I was like, I don't want to relax when I'm 60. I want to do this while I'm 20. And I do wish I had worked a little more in those younger years so I could enjoy my time a little more now.
That's good advice too.
Yeah, see the long-term benefits for sure.
Because it compounds rapidly too, especially in a business like this.
It does. 10 years. I mean, I know people that can work for 10 years and retire if they do it right.
That's wild. There's not a lot of careers where you can do that. You can come into with not a lot of formal education necessarily, work your ass off for a decade, and be in a great financial place. But this is one industry that provides that opportunity.
Yeah, and there's some luck to it too, for sure. And in the age we live in with the appreciation of certain assets, I mean, look at what's happened with cryptocurrency since we first met. That was one of the things we bonded over.
Yeah, Bitcoin.
You have people that are making salaries of $150K, $250K a year, which are good salaries, but some of these young guys went all in and took all their life savings into some of these assets, like even real estate, which has doubled since 2020 in a lot of places, and a lot of these cryptocurrencies, and have really, if you were investing the majority of your income between like 2016 and now, you really just couldn't have gone wrong.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big differences between like our generation and like our parents' generation is like when they were younger, the U.S. dollar held value, and so they could save and then eventually buy a house, and their savings technology, because the dollar wasn't being devalued as rapidly, was more effective. Whereas now you can't do that. Like your money's being so rapidly devalued, you have to go and acquire assets. You have to learn how to invest your money. You can't just pass it off to like a financial advisor and be passive. You really have to be strategic and then know what's coming, and then either buy great real estate and know how to manage it, or understand the technology behind Bitcoin and digital currency.
And we have the tools to do that research independently now, and the means to buy and sell these kind of assets quickly. Whereas back then, you had to go to a stockbroker, you had paper stocks, you had to look up the prices, you had to get notified when they changed. Whereas, most people now that are our age and active in investing are trading multiple times a day on their phone, and all the access is at our fingertips.
It's wild. That's good advice, though, as far as like acquiring the assets and not selling them. And then any sort of advice or counsel to learn the investment or development side of the business to build more skill sets in that realm? And I'll just touch on what we just talked about just a little more, is that I've never regretted any acquisition of any property that I've had. Maybe I could have structured that deal a little differently, but I've regretted most of the things that I've sold. So I wish I would have hung on to all of them. I remember we were partying in Mexico and you're selling Bitcoin, and it was probably, $20K then?
It's 30-something.
30-something, yeah.
And it was like crazy. We were tripling our money. We were so happy about it. I actually bought into that place we were staying with Bitcoin back then.
That's wild. Yeah,
and I think I sold my share in it for like 3.5 of them, and it was $30K at the time or something.
Yeah. That's wild, man. Can you identify one belief that you think has changed your life the most?
I think since that health incident I talked to you about, I've had more of a connection with my spiritual side of myself. You can call it religious or whatever you want, however you see God fit. But I think having that belief in something greater than myself has really been a lot of the death of that ego and that pride that held me back in the past. And I think whether, it's fitness or religion or just having something outside of yourself and your personal life that you really believe in and believe benefits you, other people, and wanting to share that and see other people get those same benefits and growth, I think is essential for a person.
It seems there's been a big shift in the US culture specifically. I would say the last 3 to 4 years back toward a belief in a higher power or creator.
Yeah, I think so.
Spiritual element. Those grounded values that kind of lead to a happy, successful, prosperous, peaceful life. Mm-hmm. What do you think is driving that?
I think it's information access, probably. I think you'll probably always have these swings between people being less and more religious in life. I mean, you can look over history of thousands of years and you can see that. But it's more like the more we're learning as a society, eventually the agnostic gets a piece of information that clicks or resonates with them. And it's all out there, and it's all being fed to you now through an algorithm or something. Your beliefs are being kind of categorized and sent to you to help you define them. But maybe it's just that we're getting older, so we're seeing it more. I don't know if we talk to the younger generation that they would feel that way.
Yeah, because I feel like there's a period, especially 2000s, for a while, maybe 90s, 2000s, it was anti-God, pull out of schools, pull out of everything, and now it's kind of penduluming back. Especially with all the chaos in our cities and areas that used to be peaceful and safe are being disrupted with chaos and destruction, and you kind of see both sides of things. So the catalyst for you was health that kind of drove you down that spiritual path. Yeah, absolutely. That's all. Is that journey you're still kind of on, or were you?
Yeah, I think we'll always be on that journey to learn and grow more.
What have been the benefits?
It brings a lot of stability and self-confidence. For me, it's like almost a routine, like a mental routine that you can get in when you think about the little things in life, and you have kind of this belief system to reflect on or guide that, so you're not just wandering through every problem, what's the right or wrong decision. You kind of have these guidelines of something is the right way to go to maybe help you do the things that are hard sometimes instead of do what's right even if it's harder.
You think there have been positive outcomes, or have the outcomes of your life been improved? from adopting spirituality, belief in a higher power,
Yeah, I think
standards?
I think overall, there's definitely things that make it. There's definitely hardships from it, but I think in the long run, those hardships end up becoming something that that I kind of look forward to, because I think you need that. You need that struggle in order to have some gratefulness and some gratitude. So a lot of things in life, whereas maybe I wouldn't have used my now newfound moral beliefs, that maybe aren't to my own personal advantage in the short run. I mean, in the long run, you just kind of feel better about yourself and how you're affecting the world.
For sure. Yeah. So you're more at peace as well.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great, man.
Yeah.
It's a good place to be. You have any properties you can think of that you passed on, you didn't buy?
Yeah, plenty.
Any you still think about that haunt you?
There's one that haunts me all the time. Is I bought a place and I fixed it up and I sold it within a year for like a 40% markup, and now I would buy that property back for another 40% if they would sell it to me. And that was a personal place, and I just feel like I'm never gonna find that one again. I might have shown it to you. It was this log cabin I had overlooking Lake Charlevoix, but maybe one day that'll come back to me. But as I mentioned earlier, I mean, clients ask me this all the time, and I use this line with clients all the time, and I say I should have just bought anything and everything in 2016, 17. I mean, I passed on multiple properties every year, and all of those would be worth more now if I had bought them.
That's the game of real estate, man.
Yeah.
So if you lost everything tomorrow, what's the first thing that you would do to rebuild? You had to start over from scratch.
Did I lose my real estate license too?
I don't know.
I'd probably sign up for a real estate licensing course.
Let's say you got dropped in another market and you lost all
yeah.
your contacts and you had to start over.
I think from a business perspective, I think I would start immediately getting involved in whatever community I was in. You'd be surprised at how much my LinkedIn network has grown from being on the chairlifts in Aspen as compared to being in my office working. So I think whatever community I was in, whether I'm going to go into sales or anything else, I mean, it's always about who you know. And so getting involved in a positive way, whether it's volunteering or finding a local church that I resonate with, or being involved in a certain sports community in that area. That's probably the first thing I would do.
That's awesome. Those are all great paths. Be involved in the community in multiple areas and build connections.
Yeah, or just whatever area you
network.
can be a benefit to the community and outside of your professional career.
It's been fun, brother. That's all I've got on here. Good conversation, man. Interesting lifestyle. It's amazing to see what's happening up north.
Yeah.
And it's cool to have this conversation and spend some time together. Anything else that you want to touch on you think is valuable?
No, I would just say you should check in with me at the end of summer, and we'll see what happens up there and the continued growth. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, I'd love to come up there too and visit you, man. We'll do part 2.
Yeah, you should. I'll see you
and
up there.
check out the community a little bit. So looking forward to it.
Sounds
Austin,
good.
thanks for spending time with us today, man.
Thank you, dude.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
appreciate you.
Yeah. We got that.
Again, guys, I'm James Danley. Thanks for stopping in the Bulldogs podcast. Any thoughts, feedback? If you guys are familiar with Northern Michigan, Charlevoix, please place your comments below. If you want to buy property up there, hit up my man Austin. He'll take care of you guys. Appreciate you. See you in the next one.